Hello there, and welcome to yet another episode of the Build Our Story podcast. My name is Ekom Akpabio Joseph. I am the host of this beautiful podcast. Today we have a guest in the house. I call her Creativity. She's creativity personified. She is the CEO and founder of Ifetayo Cultural Arts Academy. She's also the Chief Visionary Officer of Global Ase Consulting firm. She has a lot of pedigrees to her name. She has done a lot of impact. Behind the scenes, we're talking about how often she travels. Yeah, she has done a lot of social impact to communities, and she has a thing for culture. And today, I'm so honored to have her right here in the studio to Writers. If you're just joining us for the first time, this is the Build a Story podcast, and this is a platform where we share African stories. Stories of African leaders who have done great things in the communities across the continent in Nigeria, raised kings, built stuff just to inspire and to motivate us. Okay, so our guest today is no other person than Kwayera Archer. So good to have you in the house today, ma'am.
Oh, and so good to be here.
When I was reading through your profile, I realized that you're a professional ballet dancer at some point.
Yes.
And that really intrigued me. How was that?
Oh my goodness. That was pretty amazing. And I attribute that to my mom because she saw me dancing around the house, and she was what I call an awake mother, right? To see a child's natural abilities. And although my parents, when I decided I wanted to start my career journey as a dancer, my father said, dancer, you have the wrong D. You mean doctor. What's dancer? But I think when you ask what it was like, it's a blessing to have parents, especially my mom, support me in what my heart was yearning to do, because that was the beginning of the journey. Who knew that I would be a serial entrepreneur, a community developer, and all these other things? So I think we shouldn't put limitations on children because it might be the doorway.
Really, really. And so from ballet dancing, you got into opening up the Ifetayo Cultural
ballet
Academy.
Exactly. So ballet dancing, modern dancing, and then I went to the Fame High School, and trained heavily. And after dancing with some companies, I realized that I had access to everything. And why couldn't all children have access? Is it just because of where I was born, who I was born to, where I live? And I thought that was unfair. Not that I was depressed about my access or opportunity, but just that what can I do with the most I have in my hands today and my reach? And I said I wanted to make sure that children in Black and Brown communities in America, in New York, to start, could have access to everything, whether they had the money or not. And it didn't have to just be some little program that people had a third thought about, but that it was an Excelsior program for some of the poorest and not poorest children, right? Where everyone came together. So you don't single out children that didn't have a lot and then have the elite over here. No, it was everyone coming together because everyone has that genius. And so whether you could pay for the service or not, I created an arts academy in 1989.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Next year it will be 35 years old.
35 years.
Oh, next year it will be 35. That's right. That's a long time.
That's a long time.
I'm really driven and focused on sustainability of businesses and entities and initiatives in our community, because oftentimes they don't have the infrastructure to last or the succession planning. They only exist for today because we're so passionate and we want to do the good work, but no one's thinking about 5, 10, or maybe even 7 generations down the line.
Okay, that's an eye-opener. But before we go into the whole details of Ifetayo Cultural Arts Academy, I'd like to really go there sometime.
Oh, you sure should. It's in Brooklyn and it's a beautiful new space.
I'd like to go there.
Yes.
But let's talk about your background.
Yes.
Where you grew up.
Yes.
How your family was. Would you say that your family, your experiences, your background, your family background motivated you? You already mentioned about how your mom has been a very strong influence in your life. Would you say that family support system has driven you to this serial entrepreneur business?
I would say so, because both of my parents had professional jobs. They were newly arrived immigrants, new Americans from Jamaica, and they had to work really hard, right? So it wasn't like anything was handed to them. They had to work really hard. So they had their jobs, and then they had entrepreneurial businesses on the side. My mom sold shoes, Nina leather shoes, and clothes for women. And this is in our basement, having wine and cheese, events for women to come over and shop in our home. But she was a hematologist.
Oh, wow.
So, right, she was a medical professional at a very high level, and still decided to have a side business. And my dad, he was an accountant, and decided to have a tax business on the side, on the other side of our basement in the house. So seeing my parents work for entities and corporations, but yet and still decide to go and build their own businesses, I think was the beginning. My father taught me shrewd business. Like, don't, just because you're a woman, please don't let people tell you don't belong at the table.
Oh, yeah.
He encouraged me to be at the table, even if I'm the only woman.
It's really great.
And for your dad to do that's
really
so
great.
He empowered me. And my mom, she really inspired generosity and kindness, and she used to raise money for sickle cell anemia. And because she, her profession was blood and looking at deformities in blood and trying to come up with solutions. And so she really wanted to make sure that somebody did something extra. So she would do fashion shows to raise money, and watching her and running around with her let me know, hey, you can do something really good in the world, and you could make money doing it, and you can have fun. And so those pieces of my parents really, I think, set the foundation for me in terms of my serial entrepreneur drive.
So your parents did not just show you the love that parents would show you. They also laid a platform where you could learn you learned business proper. And then something you said about your mom, catering for people that had sickle cell. That's like that's from someone that has a very big heart to want to serve. I mean, the bottom line of everything you've said right now is service. That's exactly what you're doing right now. Service.
She set it up for me. My mom's heart was almost endless capacity. Which I'm still learning, right? It looks like you might have that, but she, like, for example, if it were Christmas at our home, people would bring people. Somehow, everybody always got a gift from my mother. So she had extra gifts for people who would just show up. It was like she was always thinking about people. She would go to the bank and she would say, oh no, I needed extra help, and take the bank rep a big basket or a basket for everyone in the bank, not to get something, but just to say thank you. Her generosity is representative of what I always told her publicly whenever I received an acknowledgement. I would say, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. But it takes compassion.
It does.
Be like that, to put your own problems and issues and challenges and tiredness to the side to show up better.
And just take care of people.
But you got it right. You have to be better than your feelings at that moment, right? It's about something bigger, and that's what I'm still learning. But doing the best I can.
You're right. So 34 years.
Yes.
34 years. Ifetayo Cultural Arts Academy. How has that been? How's the journey been?
Ooh. Okay. So I can give you some highlights.
Please do.
Yeah. So another drive. I wanted to really help children at the age of 24. I was 24 years old. Wow. And I said, I'm going to do this. And I had so many naysayers, so many. And I decided that, again, this is the theme in my life. I'm going to do the most I can with whatever I have in my hands today, right? So it's not like I knew everything, but I had enough to start and build as much as I could. I was the youngest of everyone I brought on team. All my teachers were older than me. And it was hard because I didn't start seeking funding. I didn't have all the capital. And I decided to do a nonprofit, right, organization, which means it wasn't about me. And that's people say, why didn't you name it Kwayera, the sunrise? I said, no, it's not about me. It's about love being enough for joy. What did I want more than anything is I wanted children and their families to learn. Once you have love for yourself, it really creates joy and happiness. And then you can have love for others.
Yeah.
So that was the name of the organization. And I started with no money other than my own money. I took $60,000 of my money I had saved, all of it, at the young age of 24. And I invested it in a nonprofit, which is unheard of because you don't invest in nonprofits. You put blood, equity, sweat and tears, and you get people to give you money to do this good work. And then we started building, and I was told by my teachers, do not start with people giving you money, because then you become dependent and you start flip-flopping and doing whatever people say when they want to take the money. And so, like the mind of a child, it was really important for us to get to 5 and 10 years old on our own. So if later when we got funding and sponsorship and people pulled the money, we didn't just start waffling and change our focus or our dynamic or our vision because that's where the money was going. We also had to make strong foundation for values, right? So another thing that we did a highlight is we never took money from the 3 Bs, companies that worked with cigarettes, butts, right? Cigarette butts, bullets and ammunition, right? And also booze, alcohol, because we realized it's not synonymous with our mission. We're trying to help young people really develop good values and not fall into gang violence or guns or even ammunition, anything like that, liquor, alcohol. And these companies with cigarettes would run after us with money, and we didn't take it. And sometimes we really struggled because we said, this is our value base, this is our ethos. And another highlight I could say, it was really hard growing Ifetayo because it's like I was just driven. No, really, after I resigned, I was like, my gosh, this was like 24 hours. I was raising children, husband, like everything. It was a lot, but drive can keep you going.
Can keep you going, true.
And I realized, my goodness, it's so important to build community.
It is.
And that's what kept me going. The people who believed in my dream and understood that I was making space for their dreams to come to life in my dream, which now became our dream. And that was where business turned into business and family. And for me, understanding Jamaican roots and the best of what I know my ancestry in African communities had to offer is really important for people in the diaspora and at home on the continent to recreate communities, right? Not just the Western model of business over here and then you go home over here. Like, we have communities. What does that look like? How can we recreate it? And that's what I worked on for 25 years in partnership with people. So families, children not being able to get along with their parents and knocking on my door when I just wanted to go to sleep and had to make up the couch for them to stay. Yeah, I was always available. And and still to this day, I mean, I even have a text that I just received this morning from a young student who's now a young mother who's brought her children back to Ifetayo. And she has her MBA, Master's in Business Administration, and a very great job. And she wrote me a thank you. She just said, congratulations, because I just received a chieftaincy. And she said, you really live your values and you inspire us to do so. That's all it's about for me. That's what Ifetayo is. And that's why it was important for me to walk away. But we'll get to that later.
Oh, great. We'll get into that later. So I have a lot of 3-tier questions.
Yeah.
In this category. You mentioned Ifetayo and Ifetayo. How did the name come out? Like, what was the inspiration behind the name?
So when I was growing up, right? We were very proud Jamaicans.
Yeah.
My father was like, "You're a Jamaican, you're not an American." I was like, "Okay, what does that really mean?" I know I was raised in, America and Jamaica, which gave me the best of both worlds. Going to the country, seeing my grandmother carry basket on her head, and she was a farmer, and just the nature experience, just really the family, some African traditions that still exist in Jamaica and in the Caribbean. It was very different than my American upbringing. And all of that really inspired me to say, okay, how do we move from being newly arrived immigrants to, having my African traditions show up in my life, but not really calling it African, because my parents would say, "You're a Jamaican, you're a Jamaican, you're a Jamaican." And as I started to study, learn, and grow, I said, wait a minute. So I think I'm really African, right? And Daddy, your mother, even though you're very light, is like really, really, really dark in Jamaica. And hey, wait a minute. Didn't I hear we have maroon blood? Like maroons are, I'm like, wait a minute. And the family didn't really talk about the African aspect. And the more it was kind of ignored, not any blight to my parents, right? Because they were socialized in a time that anything too dark or anything too African should be shunned and ignored. That's just how it was until you had people like Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley, advocating for that, Queen Nani. But when you wanted to be educated, if you wanted to get through, you didn't, these thoughts were passed down. And the more that we were told, like, don't look at that side, is the more I became hungry for it. Because I was like, who's hiding this from me? It's like somebody trying to hide something that's real good. I was like, something wrong. Something wrong. So getting to the name of Ifetayo, it was really important for me to investigate, like, what is this Africa thing? And so I went back to Jamaica and my late teens, early 20s, and I visited my grandmother, and they started to reveal things to me, the one in Jamaica and the one that had migrated to the US.
Okay.
And as I got older, they started to share their pains, right?
Okay.
And they started to say little things like, since we're of African descent. And I'm like, I've never heard you say that. But they felt safe, and they felt I was older, and they would start to share their scars about, don't go in the sun, stay in the sun too long before you get black like monkey. This is things that society passed down with Africans that came over, and generation to generation, it was ingrained, as we see today in the Caribbean. And quite honestly, people don't want to talk about it, but in Nigeria and Africa, the bleaching, it's like anything that is associated with Black till this day in the 21st century, it's so ingrained in our head. And I said, wait a minute, if this is so much in our subconscious, like Bob Marley said, mental slavery. You don't have to have that on. And it's not just the people who went away. It's us here. So if we're so affected, I'm not going to say damaged, I'm going to say affected by this journey, this, it's like no more slave ships, no more, chains, no more selling people on the auction block, but something has been passed down. No matter how successful, how educated we become, we still have a level of self-hatred. So I said, I need to be bold. I need to use African names, like I did for myself. My mother named me Dawn. I didn't want to disrespect my parents' insight into sunrise, but I took an African name, Kwayera, which means dawn. Right? And I challenged myself to embrace the uncomfortability. It wouldn't be easy. Many people say, I will why you do that to your child? You name her Owingable. Like, why would you do that? You're just messing up her life. I said, no. I'm going to change the paradigm with the most I have in my hands today. I can't change the world, but I can raise the best children that will not use that as a limitation to say they can't use their name. They don't love their blackness of their skin and all shades in between. They don't have to bleach. They don't, you know what? So I said, Ifetayo. We're going to call it Ifetayo. Because it talked about what I wanted our community to understand: love for self. This self-hatred have to go away. It has to get out of our minds, our consciousness, our families, our practices, our beliefs, whether it's our religion, and feeling like we can't draw a picture of someone or a figure that looks like us. Like, there's so many levels to our pain at home and in the diaspora. So as a big answer for a very specific question about why Ifetayo, the name, I wanted the joy. I want to recognize the love that this entity needed to inspire, and I wanted it to be in an African language.
Oh, beautiful. Ifetayo is Yoruba, right?
Yes, it is.
It's amazing how you are very African driven, very African infused. You've got a lot of adapting other cultures. It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful to see. So 34 years running Ifetayo Cultural Arts Academy. Is it only for the Black community, or is it open to any?
Well, first I want to say it's 34 years in existence.
Yeah.
I ran it for 25 years.
25 years.
And I resigned so that I could put that succession planning theory into practice. If I held on to it forever, right, what happens? So I stepped away, and I'm still around to support it, but I'm not running it anymore.
No problem.
Which is awesome, so that young people can take the helm. In terms of your question, which you could repeat for me.
Is it just for the Black community?
Okay, so no, what's interesting about that is I just ran into a friend whose son came for 6 years at Ifetayo, and he would be the only little blonde white boy on stage, like drumming. And it's for everyone. However, and we never turn anyone away, but we're really clear and focused that the programs, the organization, the mission is for children of African descent. Now, if you want to come, that's fine. The rites of passage is for children of African descent because it's a safe place where they can begin to unlayer and share their experiences that they only experience in the world. You know, whether it's all Trayvon Martin, all these things that have happened to Black children in the U.S., they can only process that in safe environments where and it's not against anyone. It's just that, you know, Black children have experiences that other people just don't have.
Yeah.
But the organization is open. We have children of all racial backgrounds attend, but it's primarily
for African descent.
Primarily African descent and origin, because we have children who just, you know, left Africa who are a part of the program as well.
Okay.
You know, so it's open. Yeah.
Okay. So for 25 years, you have been in the forefront of this great academy. And I must say that you have built a safe space for people. You have built like a shelter, like a haven where people can come, where young minds, African minds can come together, you know, display their talent, display their arts, and just feel safe in that place. So let's move now to Global Ace.
Ashe. It's Global Ashe.
Ashe.
You know
bad.
me already.
My
it's
bad.
Okay.
My bad. You're a creativity queen. Global Ashe. How was the transition, and what year, what point did you build up Global Ashe?
Right. So it was about 2013, 14 that I started Global Ashe when I was preparing to resign from Ifetayo. It was a smooth transition because I had focused so much on building institutions. Like, that to me, like when you look at everything, what do you want to leave? You want to leave institutions which foster community building, which is what's lacking globally for us. And so moving on to Global Ashe was facilitated by my focus to work with leaders, communities and institutions. And so my firm was founded to just do that. And I started working with arts agencies and ministries in the Caribbean, working with multiple organizations. And slowly it became about not just management and leadership, but wellness. People ask me, my gosh, you've raised 3 children, you married, you had all this going on, you did other things on the side, you volunteered at your children's school, and you're still happy. Like, you're still happy and you look somewhat healthy. Well, I wasn't healthy before I transitioned to Global Ase. I had worked so hard that I was falling apart. Oh. I was like so driven, like business, family. It was nothing hardly left for me. But I didn't feel that because I was going so hard. And at a certain point, almost like everything almost fell apart within me.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out how to rebirth myself, revision, recreate. And that was understanding boundaries now. That was understanding healthy working habits.
Yeah.
The organization was healthy, but was I healthy?
You were not.
Right. I wasn't healthy. I was too much. And once I started to implement those practices and really do a check-in, right? What makes me happy? What do I want to do? Of course, I love working with the community and people and children and institution building and community building. But what made my heart sing after 25 years? And it was now moving from the front to the back. I didn't need to be in the front anymore. I often am in the front, but it's not my goal to say I need to lead this ship. I wanted to empower leaders to get to the front and create space for others to have input in their leadership.
Let me just for our viewers, right? So you're saying that it's very important, or it's normal, or it's okay for a leader to be able to know when it's time to take the back seat. Because a lot of people do not know that.
No, you can hold on to something and choke it until it dies. You choke the life out of it, especially if you don't make space for others to have input, access, and participate. That's what leadership is. Sure. There's 16 different types of leadership. Autocratic, there's the visionary, there's the inspirer, there's the, democratic leader. There's so many different types, right? And that can get so segmented. But I think what's really important is if you ask a leader, what is your one most important focus with one word? And when I work with leaders, I ask them, don't give me a big, long story. Just one word.
Yeah.
What is most important to you? To what? And many, many, many say to inspire. But they're not inspiring. So then we begin decoding, how do you inspire someone if you're broken down, you're not happy, you're, drinking around the clock, you're not inspiring. So leaders have to go in and get their own instrument, their being together spiritually, mentally, physically, and look at, do you have to be the type of leader that is hard and mean and insensitive? And the more we're having more and more women leaders, and it doesn't work all the time. You might get some results temporarily, but is it healthy? Are you happy? And leaders need to be happy too, but that's by taking care of yourself. Yeah.
So I guess that's the question we have to ask ourselves. What is one thing that really makes us tick? What makes us happy?
Yeah.
What are we passionate about? Because you cannot give what you do not have.
Exactly.
If you're not okay inside of you, how are you going to feed the other people?
Exactly.
I think I was watching a video this morning, and the woman was talking about leadership, and she said that most people expect leaders to talk all the time, to give solutions all the time, but it's okay for you to sit back and allow other people to share.
Oh, it's not just okay. It is a part of the, program, the recipe for success. You have to, because then what are you doing? You're just having bodies. You really have to create space for leaders in the making to stumble, to fall, and not, just reprimand them. Just like it's a learning. I think if we begin to look at young leaders, and when things fall, you call it a learning and not necessarily always a mistake. And then you create a culture of people being courageous to step forward and try.
Yeah. So it's so good to see this part of you come out right here in the interview. And I forgot to mention that our guest is a change agent, a leadership and well-being coach. Yeah. So good to see this part of you come out right now. I'm learning a lot. So let's go to Global Ashe.
Yes.
You mentioned that it was quite unhealthy for you because you were all about passion, but you forgot to take care about yourself.
Yeah.
How was that part?
Well, when I started working with leaders in Global Ashe, I was committed to first, doing workshops for multiple leaders, right? Through agencies, as I mentioned, through ministries, countries. So I'd work with like 20, 40, 50 different leaders over a span of time, looking at management. And there was an entire section on wellness. And you would just see people break down crying, because they were very successful at their jobs. But they were now attending a management leadership session, and there was a whole, I would say lesson plan dedicated to wellness, financial wellness, fun wellness, social wellness, physical wellness, spiritual wellness, mental wellness. I mean, these people were running, some of them, nearly $50 million agencies. And when it came to financial wellness in their life, they would just break down crying.
Oh dear.
Because, and so wellness is holistic and really looking at every aspect. And that's really what we focused on. Over time, it kept growing to more and more concepts of wellness. And then I started creating retreats for leaders to step away and go to maybe like Jamaica for 4 days and immerse completely in redesigning who they wanted to become with these different curriculum topics that I offered, and safe spaces for them to reflect, to see what their gaps were and how they wanted to go back in and implement new vision for their person as a leader.
That's profound. That's really good. Thank you so much for that. I'm talking about awards and recognitions. You've been given quite a number of awards. When I saw it, I was like, okay. And I saw a picture of you. There's this woman she's quite she's an amazing person. So when I saw the picture, I'm like, wow, okay. So you got an award for National Guild for Community Arts Education and National Arts and Humanities Youth Program Awards, presented by Michelle Obama at the White House. And that was for Ifetayo.
Yes.
You have done, the work you did was so profound, was so result-oriented that it was obvious. People saw it.
They did. And, that experience, the biggest part for me was taking African dancers and African drummers to the East Room.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. To the East Room in the White House for the first Black president of the United States in America. That was the first time that African drumming and dancing was ever done in there at a very high level with young people. And if you know, slaves built the White House. And so to have these children come in there and pull in our heritage through, and this African heritage is not just drumming and dancing, but it is a significant part that carries messages and stories from our way back, right? Yeah. And so that was a very profound moment. And to see, First Lady Michelle Obama get up and start dancing with the students, and then take them all in the back in a private area and give them message of, and I'll share, it was private. She just took all of them and she said, never, ever, ever stop learning, don't stop your education, and don't believe that you can't do anything you want to do. And they all left that knowing.
That's really beautiful to know that she was there to support them. She was there to encourage them with those words. Because one of the limitations in entrepreneurial journey and just generally life is when you have a vision or you have a passion for something, and then you share it with one or two people and they bring you down. That is not nice.
No, it's not, but it's because people are fearful, right? It's their own fear. And when you listen to people, you can't blame them, because they just, and I'm going to take it back to the experience that we have in our DNA, whether you're on the continent or in the diaspora. Oftentimes, and it's still memory in us that families were ripped apart. They don't want anything to happen to anyone. You want anyone to fail. You don't want anyone to be taken away. You don't want them to be hurt. You don't want them to be with loss. So you just say, no, don't do that. Like, when you see children in the diaspora in particular, we're very hard on raising our children, or have been historically. And parents, you would hear them say, I'll paraphrasing, but oftentimes they would say, if you don't sit down and behave, then, the police will come get you, because that was real. Like, if you act out of any being free, you could literally get in trouble. Look how many people are driving in America, or, quite honestly, across Africa as well, in the Caribbean, and just driving. And the crime was being young and Black, and maybe even male and female. So it's like parents have tried to be very strict and stay in line. And so when you hear comments like, oh, you can't do that, that's going to piss it, don't, you're going to fail, you're going to get in problems, you're going to lose your money. It's from a place of fear.
True.
And what we have to do is begin to transform that fear to empowerment, inspiration, belief, hope. We just have to, but it happens here.
Yeah, it's all in the mind.
And we have to learn our history and understand that we're not so different, whether it's the Caribbean, Africa, or America. Yes, I'm an African woman, and no matter where I go, people are like, yeah, you're not really African though, you weren't born here. And I'm like, well, where am I from then? That's our problem. At least I could go back to Jamaica or whatever and find my roots back to Africa. But we have a lot of work to do together across the seas.
No, it's really beautiful hearing your story. And one would say that it's because you have a lot of access. It's because you were given a lot of access when you were young. We had the opportunity of immigrating from Jamaica to US. That's something that people would want to have.
Right.
So the question would be that because you had a lot of access, that's why you were able to do all these kind of things. But then I would like you to say a word or counsel to people out there, to our viewers out there who have the little they have. What can they do with that little they have? Even if they don't have the access that you had, what can they do with what they have right now?
A word, or you want me to explain?
Okay,
thank you. Because that's a hard one, but easy. A word is belief. Believe that you can see a little child selling, like, say, make this up, right, their cookies or candy right at the corner, or like there's a little girl in America, Marley, who wanted all the little children to read books, right, Black books, and she was like one of the youngest in 40 under 40. She just never gave up. You just have to keep going and pull people around you who know more than you. I'm going to say that again.
Yes, please.
Pull people around you who know more than you. I was driven to bring the smartest people. Like, if you had PhDs in something, I was like, can you come and be a volunteer? You're an accountant for the White House. Can you just give me like an hour or 15 minutes? Remember to send thank you cards. Like, bring people, increase your circle of influence. You can meet somebody. You go in a building, be nice. You might just be delivering something, but you never know who you'll run into.
Yeah.
Increase your circle of influence and write down a vision for yourself. If you don't have access, document it. Believe it or not, the universe and the Most High conspires to support your dream. So if you keep saying you can't, all those people you told me about that say, oh, can't do it, you can't, that's what's going to manifest for them. It's about being a visionary, creatively visualizing. So, or you could call it positive thinking, or you could call it blessings, or you could call whatever you call it. Keep focused on where you want to go.
So what is the importance of self-affirmations in the business world?
It is not just important, again, it's essential, because that creates a culture. If you're running a business and you can't even inspire yourself, but you want to inspire others, you have to have it on the wall. Your meetings have to operate like that. You have to take people on outings. You have to answer the phone in that manner. Every single thing has to be inspiring and positive.
Oh, beautiful. You've inspired me so far. The first half of this conversation, I've been inspired, I've been motivated to want to do more, to impact the circle around me. Let's just start from there. Right, and then the world can get better from there.
If we all do our little bit.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We're going to go on a break now, a very short break. And by the time we come back, we'll go into the next section of the conversation.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So thank you so much. We're going to be right back. Stay with us.
Powerful voices.
Powerful voices.
Powerful voices. Powerful voices.
Unforgettable messages. Experience the magic.
All here at Sabirata Studios.
All here. Just the way you like it.
Just the way you like it.
All here. Sabirata Studios.
And welcome back after this break. We'll be having conversations with the CEO and founder of global Ase Consulting firm, Kwayera Archer. She has been an embodiment of arts, embodiment of wisdom. I've been inspired over here, and she displays selflessness. She displays the art of service, humanity, giving values to humanity, and influencing the community around her. And it's been quite one of a conversation. Thank you so much, ma'am, for everything that you represent. Really inspired.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the foundation you have right here in Nigeria.
Right.
Adekoju Arts and Culture Foundation.
Right.
What was the inspiration behind, founding that?
Well, actually, I did that in partnership with Chief Princess Adedoyin Oloshun in Oshogbo. It was a dream of hers for a long time, and she's a dear friend of mine, and a lot of her work is connected to the UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Oshun Sacred Grove. She's actually an elder. She's a cultural developer. She went to university for cultural heritage, and people see her as a historian, but they don't know she's also an academic, and they see it in an artist, but they don't know because she's so rooted in the tradition, ensuring that it's not lost. And so many moons ago, someone said to her, I don't know, about 15 years ago, a dear friend of hers who does a lot of community development, she was in the middle during a rainstorm in Oshun of trying to save a child who had fallen in like a kind of well, and the rain was just pouring in, and she was like, we've got to get the child out, and the whole community was around, and everyone was like, there's no use, let's walk away. And she was like, we're not leaving. She was on her stomach, trying everything. Eventually they got the child out because of her dedication, focus, and stick-to-itness, I'll say. Later, this dear friend of hers and some other elder said to her, you do this all the time. You take children off the streets, you do this, you do that, you have your work, you're an artist, you're a community developer in certain aspects, but you don't call it that. Your house is always open, your door is always open. Yeah. She was in the Suzanne Wenger house, right, in Oshogbo, who is an artist who came back to Nigeria, came to Nigeria and decided to stay. And she was reared around her. So she knows a lot about art. Was educated abroad and so forth. She decided, with all that she was doing for children, I mean, if I tell you some of the stories after, you would be blown away, because we're all too busy in our lives to take a child off the street and feed them, or to say, if a child says, Mama, I can't see in the class because there are 70 children in the class. Mama, not her child, but a child 2 doors down, will tell her, and she'll take that child and put them in private school.
Wow.
Right. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I say all this to say, this good friend of hers, a doctor, said to her, pulling that child out of this well, what you do every day is community development. And she was like, what? Community development?
She had no idea what she was doing.
She's like, she knows what she's doing, but she's not going to put a title that's socially acceptable to everybody else. She's like, I'm going to do it whether I have support to do it or not. This is my life's mission. And he said to her, you need to start a foundation and organize it so that all the knowledge you have traditionally and so forth can be passed on, and you can get the supports to do this even more.
Right.
And he said, what would you call it? And she said, Lade Koju. And the reason she said that was because Oshun represents, the motherly, feminine aspect, whatever you call it. If you call her an Orisha, if you call her an image or folklore, or however you deal with it, this entity of Oshun represents feminine empowerment, right? Lade Koju is another name for Oshun. But Koju is the side of Oshun that comes to confront injustice and comes to transform. And so with all that's happening to women and girls in the world and in this country and in Africa overall, it was really important for her to want to begin to look at icons or models or even traditional images of powerful women that weren't made up yesterday. And that's going back to culture and heritage, thousands of years. This entity, Oshun, was like the story goes, right? When all the men came to create, and it's no just against men, but it's just the story. And I'm going to do it real quick. God sent everybody down to create, go create the world. And they came back, it didn't work out. Like everything, there's no water, there's no this, there's no that. Well, God said, what happened to that one woman I sent with you? She's just a woman. God said, you go back and you work with her. And when they went back and worked with her, life started, right? So if you attribute that to environmental, to the rivers, to the water, you could take it in any direction, right? Because she represents the waters. A world without, which we're suffering with now, right? Without fresh water, life ceased to exist. And that also represents the woman, right? Women in our families, the mothers. So there's not one, and there's enough. God said, after this day, because you left her out, everyone will always have to recognize this woman. What does that mean? In story, our ancestors were so brilliant. Even if you take it as a story, that means every human who comes to this planet has to come through a woman.
A woman, yeah.
So everyone has to acknowledge woman and include her. And that's what this woman also represents for me. Represents this elder who is so selfless and giving. And I was so inspired to work with her because she is the real deal.
Right.
Someone who's never too tired. Someone, whether money comes or not, she's going to do this work with everything she has in her hand today to do the most with. And so she said Lade Koju. About 5 years after that, because we're friends and totally connected and someone I look to as a mentor, she asked myself and this doctor to sit down and talk about the vision. And so what I did was what I do for leaders. I took them through a session and I interviewed them, and I did a vision document with them. Like, what's the vision? What's your mission? What are the values? Why do you want to do this? What are your top priorities? And we did this over about, I don't know, a month or two, back and forth. At the end, I gave them a document. That was about 8 years ago, right? A document. I said, here is your model of what you told me this will be. Fast forward, I was in the Heritage House in Oshun, and there were some leaks in the house. Now, this is a destination. I've been there and I've seen Ibadan department, one of the heritage, bring their entire class of 40 students to learn from her.
Wow.
They just show up in the house. You can Google it, and it was made by some enslaved Africans that went to Brazil. I don't know if you know the history, and they returned to Nigeria, and they started demonstrating what they learned with architecture in Brazil when they returned as free Africans. And this is one of the buildings that one of the returning Nigerians built when they had gone as slaves and came back. Yeah. And it's an Afro-Brazilian building. And it has like 5 stories, the only thing in that area. And it hasn't been maintained. But this is a destination for people around the world. They always talk about it. It used to have galleries downstairs. It used so many things. And I was there one day, I think like 3 years ago, and the rain was pouring in. And because she's so focused, right, on helping communities, she's not focused on, like, heck, wait, I don't have the support or funding to do this. It's like a public space. Although it's a home, it's art space, it's everything. And it has a lot of artwork in it as well, ancient Yoruba artwork. And I said, hey, yeah, mama. I said, wait a minute. This is crazy. You're a princess, a chief. Yeah. You're constantly giving. You go to New York, and all the African museums quickly scurry to create board receptions at their homes or their board members' homes to get you to come because you're an expert. I took her to Brazil to be a keynote speaker years ago. All the Brazilians were like in tears because they were singing the same songs that she was singing from their ancestors that taught them, their great-grandparents. They were Yoruba people.
Oh, dear. Generations
later, outside of Nigeria, the largest population of Black people is in Brazil. So many, the connections. So with all of that, I said, you're like this really big woman, and you don't even think about it like that. You can't exist like this. We have to do something. And at that moment, I said, that's it. You're not gonna, this house is falling, this monument, this international destination. You open a travel guidebook for Nigeria, it's in there.
It's in there.
People come with their armed guards and like whatever to get. They will go there just to see this heritage house. I said, that's it. We have to do something. And so as a result, I made a couple of calls, and the couple of calls said, we want to join. We want to support. We want to restore. And that was the first part. It was really around restitution and the work she has done and her cultural knowledge. And so I decided, I'm going to be involved because I believe in sustainability. I believe in cultural heritage. If this space is a repository of not just ancient art knowledge, but cultural practices and heritage, we could possibly lose it. We understand what's happening with the Benin bronzes. Hello, we had to get a loan to buy the Benin bronzes back. That doesn't even make sense. They were looted, stolen, pillaged. So what we decided is, yes, it's restitution of ancient African Yoruba art, but maybe also other art that's not just needing to come back, but what has been retained? And how do we create pathways for people locally and globally to learn? So whether it is the art or it's the intangible aspects of culture and heritage, what is that? So what we also said is we would look at the ancient concepts of odus, right? And those are verses, stories, like, all the other cultures around the world can look at their stuff and we're like, not ours. There's so much brilliance and information and heritage in those verses that scholars are still trying to decode about how to live as good people. That's it. It's just stories, like how to live as good people. And we really want to share that with children because look at what's happening in society. I mean, there's a lot of gang stuff happening. We could call it something else, but I'm going to just say gangs for
stuff.
Yeah. How can we pull back in heritage and pull forward these values that children might feel connected to and might believe, hey, wait a minute, I come from something. We're not nothing.
We all come from somewhere.
Ancestors were brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's one of the things I've noticed about you is your consistency in your passion. You're really passionate about what you do.
I'm sorry.
You're really passionate about what you do. And on your website, you call yourself a change agent. I have seen that. I've seen that right here in the Kojo Arts. You went there, you noticed something, you brought change to it. That is very impressive, man.
And it's not about me, right? It's about what can we do to create institutions that last. And I'm going to say it for the second time in my sharing with you, thinking 7 generations forward.
Thinking section, yes.
7 generations, but learning from 7 generations back.
Behind.
If you can do that, if we can do that, we create a level of transformation that cannot be shaken.
So you were saying there has to be a balance, the old and the new combined together.
Yeah, but you also got to look at each generation and maybe start doing the research. We don't even know what came before 2 generations back.
We don't.
No, right? Whether you're on the continent or in the diaspora. That's why DNA stuff has become so prominent because people need to know. So if we learn and pull that forward and plan for your great grandchild to know that information.
Yeah. One of the things I've learned in this is that telling stories and passing down stories of our ancestors, ancestries, the traditions is important so that the wrong people or other people, not said wrong people, other people will not tell us stories for us. When we've got our stories right here to show it by ourselves.
And we can promote our stories. It's like there are so many Africans in the diaspora, even the ones that are leaving, we say for brain drain, the ones that were taken away like decades, hundreds of centuries ago. Like if we just really had access to know how powerful we are, maybe our countries on the continent could really, now I'm getting serious, right? They could begin to transform and
thrive.
We wouldn't have so many people starving. And just it's really, no. There's too much information here and how-tos. So that's why I'm back home. Right? Who knew, as I said earlier, that choosing Ifetayo when I was 23 years old, just the name, tied to Nigeria, tied to Yoruba culture, tied to, who knew? It was just, maybe God knew that decades later, my life would be tied to Nigeria now.
I've seen the alignment, I've seen the process. I've seen the progression of everything.
Your
life's journey and your life story is quite rich. It's very rich.
Thank you.
It's very rich. So we're winding to a close this session. I'd like you to, inspire people. What would be your last words? Or let me ask this question. If you were to speak to tell your 20-year-old self something, what would you say?
Keep going, girl. No. No, let me think of something else, but that would be there too. I would probably it might not be different than what I told my 20-year-old self, but I would reaffirm, lock hands and arms, elbow to elbow, with as many people with shared values as you can.
Yeah.
And don't let go.
Very important. Don't let go. You mentioned something tied to what you just said right now. Increase your influence.
That's right.
Increase your influence, increase your networking. It has been such an honor, such a wonderful time with you, ma'am. Your story inspires us. Before we go, let's talk about how beautiful your children are.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
How have you been able to, I like to ask this question, especially to women who are really inspiring other women. How have you been able to balance life, family, and work? How have you been able to do that?
Yeah, people often say, you have everything. You can have everything, but not at the same time. I'm going to say that again.
Words and marble, please. Write that down.
You can have everything, but not at the same time. And so many leader women who achieved a lot say that, right? And it's so true. Like, I was building the organization, but when I was at their school, I wasn't doing a great job at building the organization. When I was traveling, I wasn't doing a good job of being at the school for my children. But, you know, and something's going to give. You have to prioritize. That is the way to be able to do it. That's the word of wisdom, like I would leave. Prioritize. What do you want to give the most of your energy to? And then the second amount of energy, and then the least amount of energy. They could be your top 3 priorities, but one is going to get the least amount.
Right.
And are you walking into that clear and not saying, oh, I failed, I didn't do a good enough job? No, you knew you were going to give the least amount, but you have to prioritize what gets the most. And that would be my word of wisdom with my children in balance. What I'd like to say about my children that I said earlier is that they have African names. I was very clear about that, not to make their life hard, but to make their life purposeful. That it's not easy, and I'm not going to pretend it's easy. And you have to be great at what you do. Yes, you may have to even work harder to create a just society. And you have purpose, and your names have meaning. My daughter's name means God sent. My first son's name means of noble promise. I'm sorry, that's the third son. The second son means the knowledgeable one.
Oh.
The daughter she's Owingable. She has graduated and has her own firm. She's an academic coach for children who learn differently. And my son, the first son, he just graduated with his master's in architecture and is at a firm now, and he's interested in creating healing spaces around the world for communities that don't have access. And my youngest son is a musician, and he's raising his daughter as a single dad.
Oh, beautiful.
And they're all big people.
You're all big people.
Yeah, so now I can have the next phase of my life.
Of your life.
To travel and build communities in partnership.
Oh, that's great. You're really blessed.
You have no, I am
really
so blessed. I'm so blessed. I stay on my knees giving thanks.
You're really blessed.
I don't take any of it for granted.
We are so honored to have you share your story with us. I have been inspired. I've just been in awe right now. So before we go, we're just going to have some trigger.
Trigger. I've been using that word all week for people. Okay, here we go. Talk about some divine order.
Right. We'll just talk about some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And the questions are just to ask you, then you just answer in seconds. Nothing serious.
Okay, let's see.
Nothing serious.
Here we go.
Okay, what's the first thing you do when you wake up?
Pray.
Oh, okay. What's your favorite holiday destination?
Jamaica.
Nice. Can you speak Patois?
What do you mean? Of me? You don't see it. You don't think you didn't hear in the interview enough time to talk Patois to you. I hope you can understand.
Okay, that was nice. that was really great. Okay, if you were to give your life story a novel title, what would it be called?
Believer.
That's really nice. It's really nice. Okay, we have come to the end of this conversation. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for honoring us. And we have come to the end of today's session. It has been nothing but insightful, profound, very, very, very nourishing and very rich. She has shared her life stories with us, and we are so grateful. And thank you so much for joining with us. Do not forget to follow us on all our social media platforms and on YouTube at Sabi Writers TV. Thank you for making this episode a success.